What's up, guys? Welcome to the Evergreen Real Estate Podcast. I'm Michael Beasley, and I'm going to be joined here in a minute with my co-host, my friend, my mentor, and my uncle, Jonathan Beasley. We are real estate investors just like you. I invest in real estate on the side of my W-2 job as an assistant nurse manager. Jonathan is a full-time real estate investor, invests in multifamily, and also does flips. And we wanted to start this podcast as a way to add value at scale and to inspire growth in the lives of other real estate investors like you. We believe in faithful stewardship, integrity, honesty, trust, and genuine humility. And all of our guests that we're going to be bringing onto this show are guests that share our values at their core. And with them, we hope to add value to you and to inspire you to grow and to live by the same values. And without further ado, here's the first episode of the Evergreen Real Estate Podcast. I hope you enjoy. Well, Jimmy, I want to say thank you for coming.
Thank you for
shooting the Evergreen Real Estate Podcast. Well, let me just introduce Jimmy first and foremost. Jimmy owns and operates Showcase Wood Floors. It's a Long Island-based boutique wood floor company. He services Long Island and Manhattan. Clients from every tier, from clients who are purchasing their first home, to corporate accounts, to high-end restaurants, to some of the most expensive real estate on the planet. Jimmy serves all of his clients with the same level of precision and dedication, regardless of the scope of work. And today he has a team of professionals and a vast network of clients and runs his business solely on a referral basis. And that's what we're going to be talking today about, how to build a relationship business and how to put people first. So Jimmy, I wanted to say thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing some of your experience with us.
First of all, I'm so happy to be here. I'm honored to be here at the premiere.
That's the inaugural episode. Yes,
inaugural
sir.
episode.
Yes,
I grew up in Queens in an apartment house. We lived in a little apartment. And it was, I guess, a pretty kind of normal environment. The kids would all go out and play. We'd play in the street together and, got along pretty well. So I went out and I said, "Hi, I'm Jimmy." And I got poof right in the face. By about the third or fourth time, it was like, wow, what's going on over here? I was having a really bad time. I was a 12-year-old skinny drink of water. And the kids that were in this group of kids were like 15, As this went on, I began to retreat. So I found myself banging and playing on tabletops and doing things of that, And the next thing you know, I went to my father and I said, "Look, I want to play the drums." My father found a local retired big band drummer. I ended up taking lessons from this guy. He really inspired me to do the best I could. And that was the beginning of a mindset for me. You can carry that into anything in life. If you're willing to work hard at something, if you really want to be good at something, the principles are the same. Here I am now, I'm in the basement practicing the drums, and I put together my first band. That went on, and then I had a group in the early 80s, and it was called Vogue, and we were signed to RCA Records, and it was a great experience. We got to do an album. We had an international record deal, which was great. We got to sell albums all over the world. Not that many, but we got to sell them all over the world. And we're doing it, and it was really great for a while. And then kind of, I don't know, I guess I was around 29. And, it may be time for me to do something else.
Yeah. So
I made a decision that I was going to start a new life.
Okay.
Now, starting a new life at 29 years old, it's no joke.
Yeah.
So, I went to my parents' house and I announced the big announcement. I said, I've made a decision and I'm going to start a new life. And my father looked at me and he said, "Really?" He said, "What else can you do but play the drums?" And sometimes in life, I think that you can interpret something as being bad and later on realizing it was something that was really good. And when my father said that to me, it kind of hurt. But I realize now in retrospect, in essence, what he did is he lit a fire under my rear end. Because when he said that to me, I was determined that I was to prove him wrong. I had a guy who had hired me, And he came to me one day, and he said, hey, listen, I got a couple of businesses. One of them is this little floor business. So he kind of said, look, why don't you see what you can do with this? So we went into it, put a lot of energy into it. It got big. And we had 35 guys and 11 trucks. And I started realizing that, this is kind of not really the way I want to approach business. We had a very different approach the way we wanted to do things. And I realized that in order to do what I needed to do, I had to leave. Mm-hmm. It was very tough because I was doing okay financially. I had a nice house, I had a rental house, but in order to start a new business, I knew that I was going to have to take some financial hits. If we got to lose everything to do this and do it right, then that's what we need to do. And that's when I started Showcase Wood Flooring.
And so I'm taking notes here and I'm looking at this story. And if you could see my notes, you'd see, little apartment, moved into the house, and then you're meeting all these kids and everything. You're dealing with rejection. So that's pain, right? Mm. And then through that, you get your drum set, you get into the community, and then you're more integrated into the community. And then you're the drum guy, you're Jimi, you're the kid who plays drums in the rock band. So that's the payoff, right? So pain, then payoff. Then, you fast forward a little bit, you started a band, Vogue, you're getting it, okay, you're doing the thing, you got your record deal, you got your video, but then you're looking around, you're like, man, like everyone's starting to get young and I'm feeling like this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. Let me go back and but then your dad makes that comment. Pain, then you go through and you go, hey, I'm going to do the job interview. I'm going to go and go into Wall Street. And I made that one contact, and then you work into next thing you're doing a few different things and that translates, it distills into doing this one thing with this floor guy, so from that pain, what your father said, then you're doing it, the payoff. Then you're like, yeah, listen, I think I should be doing my own thing. And I know you personally, so I have the benefit of knowing that, listen, you started that wood floor business in 1991. I can look at your life now and I'm like, this is the payoff. I'm seeing this pain, payoff, pain, payoff, pain, payoff, right? Right. But that's kind of how it works is like you go through stuff and you grow and there's that abrasive sort of process, but shaving off those parts of you that aren't bearing fruit, like that painful process, eventually it does bear fruit. And that's the thing that I see in your life it's inspiring me right now. What were you going to say, Uncle Jonathan?
Yeah, I'd like to hear a little bit more because there was some really good meaty stuff there when you talked about essentially having an improper values match with your, I guess you were when you were the manager and the guy that owned the company. So again, getting back to Michael's point, there was a pain and then a payoff there. I kind of want to hear about sort of some of those revelations that you had on why you guys weren't a fit. What you discovered, like, could you identify specifically what was going on that you didn't feel a party to, and kind of like how you got to that point of like, this isn't working and let's take a riskier step?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I realized rather quickly was that volume. See, the business that we had was based upon volume. So when you're doing a low profit margin and you're doing volume, it's very hard to control quality because the object is to get a lot of jobs, do them quickly, and generate income by volume.
Yep.
Now, my personality has always been a little bit obsessive compulsive with things being right and doing things the right way. And to do things the right way takes time and it takes more money. So I realized that, when I left the company, I needed to have a clear vision of where I wanted to go and who I wanted to be in the flooring business. And at that point, I realized that volume was not the answer for me. It would be developing a clientele that was more concerned with the quality of the work than the price of the job. Okay, so now I'm starting my own business. All I've got is air because the clientele from the last business isn't going to work in my vision.
Right.
So how now am I going to establish myself, with the people that fit into what I want to do? And it was a hard transition because, just to start out and pay the bills, my wife took out an ad in the Penny Saver, which was a local publication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it just was, you know, a little line ad that said, you know, showcase wood flooring, you know, quality work, you know, owner operated and that kind of thing. And the people would call, and Kathy she's a great salesperson. She had a lot of experience, and she would sell me like I was the greatest thing since bacon and eggs. And, you know, I would get the jobs because she would these people would be convinced I was the greatest. And then, you know, I would go do the job. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, you know, the work was good and the customers were happy. So this went on for years. And then what would happen is I would get a call, and the call would be, oh, this is Dr. So-and-so. My secretary told me you did her floors. You know, and now I'm at Dr. So-and-so's house, and it's a new environment. Right. And now I'm in the environment that I want to be in. That's great. So now I do the floors. He's happy with the service we provide. And now he starts to tell his other friends. I remember the first big job that I had was a job where I had done a woman who managed a health club. And she had told her boss that I had done a good job at her house. And her boss owned a chain of health clubs. And when I went to meet him, his place basically had burnt down and needed to be rebuilt. And this was by far the biggest job I had ever, you know, even attempted on doing. And it was very, very frightening because it was just going from 0 to 100 overnight. And I told him that if he gave me the job, that no matter what it took, we would make it work for him, and he'd be open on time. Mm-hmm. And we worked 14, 15 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week for weeks. And we brought it home, and he was happy. And to this day, I have a relationship. That was 25 years ago. Wow.
And I'm listening to what you're talking about. I mean, you're talking about, I always like to draw these parallels, and I'm looking like, hey, that one contact on Wall Street, that's what led you to being the top producer there. And you kind of see it the same thing here. Maybe that one doctor, that first client kind of gets you it jump starts the engine,
yes.
Right. So it gets you going into that new tier that you're looking at. What were some of the things that you did, or some of the habits or practices that you did early on to build those relationships, to get people to say, hey, listen, Jimmy's the guy? What set yourself apart? What did you do to build that network, starting small into what it is today?
Well, I think that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think that there are basic principles that you abide by. One is you show up when you're supposed to show up.
Fundamentals,
you know, right. You do what you say you're going to do.
Right.
And if there is a problem, you fix it, and you fix it quickly. I've always, you know, stayed with those principles. And for the most part, I'd have to say, as far as I know, most of our customers have been very happy. I think some of the obstacles were not really to do with that, but to do with growing the company. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is you get to a place where you realize that these two hands can only do so much in a day.
Right. Yeah.
And then, you know, you're at the next crossroad. And the next crossroad was, okay, I'm working 6, 7 days a week. I'm at capacity. What's the next step? Right. The next step is to hire guys and train them. Now that sounds a lot easier than it is.
It's true.
Because in essence, what you're trying to do is you're trying to take your mindset and you're trying to implant it into the people that work for you. Now, a lot of times what would happen is I would get guys who would respond to an ad in the paper who were floor guys, and they already had been trained in a very different way.
So you have to change habits and bad.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
So now you're dealing with not just training somebody, but actually untraining them to retrain them.
Right.
I found that to be very, very difficult. I found it was actually easier to take people from base one and teach them right out of the gate.
Yeah, you got to clean
This
slate.
is the method.
Right.
This is the procedure. Because what people tend to do is they tend to go back to what they're comfortable with. And one of the things that's an obstacle is most guys that work in these type of companies, their bosses are telling them, I want you to be done by this time. I want you at this next job by this time. I'm the opposite. I tell my guys, I don't care how long it takes. I don't care if it takes twice as long as you think it will.
Yeah.
As long as the job is great, I will never be upset. But don't do shortcuts. Do not take shortcuts and do not compromise.
So you're the principles you're talking about. I mean, you're doubling down on quality. That's it. So your referral base, your client base, you're going to be doing business with people who care about quality. You're going to be doing business with people who share your values, who care about the things you care about. And what's cool for you is then you don't have to nitpick and negotiate. Oh, can you do it this a little cheaper? It's like, no, listen, this is the product that you're going to get. You're going to get that with me. If you want to get something else, you can go somewhere else, but this is the business that I've established over 30 years.
Yeah.
This is what we do.
Yeah.
And I love that, because when you do business with people who share your values, you can build a relationship on that. You have the same perspective, the same worldview. You're not trying to find, okay, how can I get this much out of this person, that person? It's no, like, I value quality. And if you care about quality, you're going to pay the price of admission to get that quality in your home or in your space.
One of the things that I found to be a learning experience was a lot of times, and this is something I stress because I believe that God created us equal. And I always stress this to my guys: never treat a person that lives in a regular home like I live in or they live in.
Right.
This any less than a person who lives in a $10, $20 million home.
That's great.
And a lot of times, you can take somebody that lives in a regular home, a working guy, and they can be a tougher customer than the person that has the $10 million house.
Yeah.
And this was something I learned early on, that very often the guy who has the smaller home, who's the working guy, can be the tougher customer. And I'll tell you why.
True. Yeah.
If you're going into somebody's house and you're going to, let's say, refinish their living room and dining room, okay, and let's just throw up a price. Let's say it's $1,600. Now, if you go into a guy that has a $10 million house and you do $1,600 worth of work, in relation to the scope of his world and his finances, you're a peanut. That's a peanut.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But now you're dealing with a guy that has to work 2 weeks to clear $1,600.
Right.
Now, when you do that job, he's going to be looking at everything and scrutinizing it, because he's thinking to himself, I worked 2 whole weeks to pay this guy for this job, and it better be great. So a lot of times, my toughest customers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. And I can tell you it's the same. So we work with a lot of people in like custom building, and it is the same thing. I probably spend less time in a transaction on $1.5 million home than I do building a $400,000 home, because the $400,000 guy, it's such a stretch for his world. Right. It's such a significant thing to him. Whereas, frankly, most of the people that are $1 million up, they're running a business. And so they just want to be able to pay someone to run their construction site so they don't have to think about it. They just want to feel good that it was in good hands. And so it's same exact principle in new construction as it is what you're talking about with wood floor.
Well, I'll piggyback off of that with something. You think about the 2 concepts of owner-operated floor company versus a company that is managed, which is what I do now. I manage my company. Now, I had an interesting experience. I was in a supply store some years back, and there was a guy at the counter talking to the owner of the store. And basically what he was saying is, when I go into somebody's home, I tell them, I'm the owner. I'm there myself doing the work. It's me. And, so I just kind of sat there, and I was listening to him, And then when he left, the store owner said to me, wow, Jimmy, what do you think about that? And I said, I have a little bit of a different opinion. I said, what I realize is that most people who own, more expensive homes, they don't talk to the people that actually do the work. They deal with management.
Right.
And they're much more comfortable making one phone call to one person who's in charge.
Right.
So,
That's good.
you know, that is something that I realized early on, that it could be a very powerful tool to be a manager. And basically what I told, you know, my customers is that, you know, I alone am responsible for your job. And my phone does not go off. You can call me anytime. And I think, you know, they take some comfort in that.
In building a reputation in the circles that you have, were there any practical like business tactics that you use sort of to spread word about your company? You know, like, did you have follow-up programs or protocols? Like, how did you grow your word of mouth business? Because I'm just kind of curious. I have to believe it was more than just doing a good job. So I'm kind of curious, what were some of your practical tactics in growing your reputation in those circles of affluence and those types of clients that you were targeting?
Well, to start out with, I'd have to start by saying we have two basic categories. One is my customers that I deal with directly, and the other are the general contractors that build the upscale homes that use us to do those homes. So as far as the contractors go, most of my relationships last a long time with the contractors. And the reason we have long-standing relationships is because I realize what's important to them. What's important to a guy who's building, you know, a house, any size house, is that number one, you're there when he needs you. You do the job correctly. And then, you know, you come back to fix anything if it needs to get fixed. Because the last thing a contractor wants is, you know, to have egg on his face. You know, so what I found is by making the general contractors look good with their customers was a way for me to grow in that part of the business.
I used to work at Trader Joe's for like 6 weeks. I quit because I was young and just decided, I'm like, I don't like this or whatever. So I worked there for a few weeks, but I learned a life lesson in that job that has stuck with me for the rest of my life in my career. I'm an assistant nurse manager now, and I managed a handful of people at a local healthcare institution. And the thing the manager told me was, always set the next person up for success. If you always set the next person up for success, and then that person sets the next person up for success, everything's more streamlined. Everybody works better. Everyone's happier because, wow, you know, he or she just set me up with that thing, you know, instead of like, this guy always drops the ball. I always have to clean up his mess. You know, no, that person set me up and actually went that extra mile. And you're saying that's how you've built networks with general contractors and people who are doing these bigger sort of jobs. You're making them look good. And by doing that, when you help people get what they want, you'll get what you want by proxy.
Yeah. And also too, as far as the customers that I deal with directly, you know, you find people, they socialize, you know, they speak with people usually in similar situations as them. So, you know, if you're doing, like an example, last year I was called in to do a job upstate in Westchester, Purchase, New York. And the lady had heard about me from one of her girlfriends on Long Island. We went up there, we did a big house. When we got done with that job, within 6 months, I did 3 other houses.
That's great.
Because all the women would talk at lunch, they would, you know, discuss things, and it worked out great for me. So that one job turned into, you know, a couple of jobs.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in real estate.
Yeah.
You know, it's like whether you're dealing with one broker or an investor, it's the same
Right.
sort of thing. They tell their friends.
But back to your question, Jonathan, you know, it's not the same in the sense, the way I deal with the general contractors as opposed to the customers. The customers, basically, it's word of mouth. The contractors, it's just making sure I do everything they need when they need it done. So that's kind of like the two categories.
It's an incredible testament to business fundamentals, because what I'm hearing you say, it's not like you're sending out a postcard follow-up. You're not doing a ton of like active marketing. You're simply saying you understand what's important to the people you're working with. You follow through on that, and that turns into more business and referral business.
Yeah. One thing I would say that kind of worked well for me is a lot of the people that I met were people in the arts, people, high profile type people. And interesting enough, and I would be able to sit down and speak with them and not talk about wood floors.
That's because you have that kind of worldview of
yeah.
being in these different places.
I mean, I'm actually an art head. I mean,
right.
Left to myself without,
right.
my natural thing is, I love film, I love art, so a lot of the people that I've gotten to meet, we've actually developed, rapport.
Yeah.
I've got to sit down with people you would never get close with in their kitchen, at 8 in the morning, having espresso and talking about a movie or talking about religious views.
People are people. And I think sometimes we have this, like, we feel like we have to stand behind this facade, or we have to present ourselves in a certain way. And at the end of the day, like, I don't care if you're the janitor or the president, you're a person, you're a human being, and everybody has these basic needs. They want to be understood. They want to feel valued. Everyone has these basic needs. And at the end of the day, if you find somebody where you connect with, it doesn't matter what class, what place they come from. We have this connection, and having that kind of experience, that worldview where you have dabbled in different things and you have these different experiences, you can talk to somebody and you can meet them where they're at. You're not trying to say, come up to my level or let me get up to you. No, like we're friends. We have rapport. I think that's amazing.
And also too, I love people.
Right.
Right. I mean, so
that's one thing for, like,
it makes it kind
everyone says that. I said this to you at your funeral. Like, the thing that people are going to say, Jimi genuinely cared, like genuinely, like from the bottom of his heart, substance, genuine care. That is something that you're known for in our little circle of friends.
I do. I love people. I love listening to people, learning from them, hearing their life experiences. I think everyone is unique. I think everyone has something to offer. So I'd have to say the best part of this whole journey with the wood floors is really, the floors has been just a way, obviously, to make money and provide for my family, which I'm very thankful for. And I enjoy the wood floors now, especially now more than ever, because I have great guys, great clients, really, really happy. But, it's been meeting people. I mean, I can't tell you how every week there's always some connection with somebody that I make, or someone I meet that I learned something from.
That's great, man.
So I've really enjoyed that aspect of the business.
Well, it's for every business. It's relation. That's what the title is: How to Build a Relationship Business. Yeah. Every business is just a conglomerate or a collection of people. It's people. Yeah. So at the end of the day, whether you're dealing with a customer, you're dealing with someone on your team, you're dealing with people, and knowing how to do that and knowing how to add value to people and put them first. Like, it all comes back to, like you were talking about, values. Quality, how you treat people, how you conduct yourself with someone else. Are you going to try and take advantage of somebody, or are you going to be somebody who's putting their needs before your own and actually thinking that? And that's one thing, actually, I wanted to mention. Talk to me a little bit about how you approach a negotiation. I remember when I was doing photography, I met up with Jimi for a coaching session. He was going to tell me everything about starting a business. And we were talking about negotiation. We're talking about, how do you negotiate, when you meet with a client. And you said one thing that has always stuck with me is, like, you always want both parties to leave the table feeling like they won, or feeling like they got the better end of the deal. Talk to me about how you approach negotiation with your business right now when you're meeting with either contractor or project manager. Okay. How do you approach negotiation?
Okay, well, I don't negotiate as much as I used to, because
That's all. I don't. That's how I approach it.
No, but I do. And it's funny. The thing that's coming up, the last negotiation of any significance that I did was, it was a client who was building a house out east, and she called me, and she was an exceptionally bright woman, and she is an exceptionally bright woman. And she said to me, she goes, Jimi, I've heard a lot of good things about you from different people. And I have a couple of questions to ask you about wood flooring. So she asked me these questions, and I answered them. And so I asked her, I said, do you have a wood floor guy? And she goes, yeah, my contractor has a guy who's very good, and we're going to be, using him. I said, okay, well, listen, I said, if you ever need any more info, it's still okay to call me. Don't feel like, just because, you're using another company, you can't ask me questions. So she says, that's really nice of you. She called me back a week later and she had another list of questions. So I told her, write all this stuff down. These are the things you need to watch out for. Next day I get a call and she goes, I've been talking to you and I'd like maybe to consider have you do my job. So I said, well, I said, that'd be great. I said, I'd love to do your job. She goes, what do you charge? And she goes, oh, well, she goes, I'm sorry, but you're out of the ballpark,
I liked you a lot better when you were just giving me free advice.
So I said, look, how big is the job? And it was big. It's a big job. So I said, look, I'm not written in stone. I said, it's a big job. And I said, I do feel like, we have a good connection, a good rapport. Right. So, what do I need to do, to make this happen? So she goes, this is the price that we have allotted to do it. So I said to her, I said, look, I could do it for that price, but you would have to come up short. And where I'd have to change what I do is I would not be able to do the same procedure using the same chemicals and spend the same amount of time. And I said, I really wouldn't want to do that. I said, I would feel that would not be correct to do that. So, I appreciate you offering me the opportunity to bid on the job, but, I don't think I can do it at that price. So we spoke again a few days later. And then we started to talk about, well, how can we make this work? What can we do? And this particular person was connected to some other people in the business where I could develop a relationship, where I could get some possible steady work. So she said, okay, well, we can maybe work something out and I can maybe give you a referral that might give you additional business. And we came together and we did the job and she's very happy with it. And also a wonderful person. And I'm just so happy that it worked out. But, we did find a place where I could do it and still give her a great job without compromising it. And in exchange for that, of lowering the price a little bit, she came up with something that could benefit me and it worked.
That's great. Yeah. Finding where the other person on the other side, finding what they need and how you can service that need or how you can meet that need, and a lot of times too, when you're in a negotiation, you don't necessarily negotiate the price if you can find that price, but you can negotiate the terms. What can we do? How can we add value? How can we throw something in here that makes it make sense for the other party? So you're not just, because a lot of times people, they get something that's like a price war and no one walks away from that feeling happy or feeling like the other person cares. If you feel like the other person like really genuinely cares about you, you're willing to maybe finagle the price a little bit, or maybe you're willing to go with something lower if you're like, what, they'll add value. It's going to add repeat business to my client base, that sort of thing. So yeah, I love that because you can have.
What was most profound for me, Jimmy, was the fact that you were willing to answer her questions with really no expectation of return whatsoever. And for me, like that's actually, it's personally challenging, to be honest, because I've been investing for quite a while now. And it's a subject that it's really sexy. And people always want to ask questions about real estate investing. And so I find myself, because I've invested so heavily in my own education, at times I feel myself almost a little guarded to just give that away for free because it's come at such a cost to me. So it's really, actually, I'm taking it as like a personal inspiration and challenge that you were just so willing to share with her your perspective and what you think and educate her with really, for you didn't even know if you were going to get a job out of it or not. You were just leading with value and giving and seeing the world and business as sort of a place that there's enough to go around. You don't need to try to, wring her neck to squeeze some dollars or squeeze a job out of those conversations. It's impressive.
Thank you.
When you were starting your business and you were starting your networking, you're growing the showcase wood floors, what were some of those during the pain season? I'm sure, what were some of the biggest challenges or obstacles you faced to grow and kind of get you from that place of where I'm just getting started, I have a couple of things. What was it that kind of set you on a track to actually grow and expand your business? What were some of the things, the question I'm asking, what were some of the challenges that you faced, the biggest obstacles?
The first challenge was waking up one day and finding myself actually physically doing wood floors. Because remember, a year or two before that, I was playing, 20, 21 one-nighters a month in front of crowds, in the rock world. So to go from doing that.
So then you're sanding floors, breathing in the sawdust, all chemicals.
Being a laborer.
Right.
It was a very humbling experience. And I'm very thankful that God allowed it, because it really taught me a lot about, this world, it's funny because, if you're an actor or an athlete or a rock star or something, the world gives you a lot of recognition and adulation. But what if you're a great plumber?
Right.
Does anybody say this guy's a great plumber? Does anybody say this guy's a great foreman? This guy's a great electrician? Right. They're not held up in the same esteem. And I learned that there are people out there that do work every day that are great at what they do. And I admire people, anybody. I don't care if you make hamburgers. If you make great hamburgers, as long as you're doing what you do at the highest level. And these people are out there and they're not getting any recognition at all. They go home at the end of the day, they're exhausted, and nobody's even giving them a thanks, including most of their bosses.
Yeah.
So I realized early on, that this is not an easy road. And my guys, I never berate them. I never yell. I never say anything that would be demeaning to them or speak to them in a demeaning way. I have such thankfulness that my guys every day show up and go out and work hard and maintain a consistent level of expertise that allows this company to maintain and grow. So, for me, I got to a place where I was working 6-7 days a week, and it was physically impossible to keep going. People would say to me, you're going to have a collapse, you're going to die. Yeah. You cannot work this many hours. Right. So the logical move was, what do I do next? And that is to have people work with me and start taking some of the workload off. And that was not an easy transition.
Tell me about that process of bringing people on. How did you, because it's easier said than done, like you're saying.
Well, here, perfect example to show you how little I knew when I wanted to start hiring guys. So I put an ad in the paper, and the first guy that shows up is the guy who's a bodybuilder. And he comes up and he says, I'm looking for work. I can do physical work, as you can see, and I need a job. So I said, okay, come on. So the first day I take him on the job with me. And at about 1 o'clock, I say to my assistant, hey, what happened to that guy? Where is he? He goes, and he points to the backyard, and this guy's laying on a lounge chair and he's exhausted and he's basically wiped out. So I learned really quickly that being able to be good in the gym does not equate to being good physically as a floor guy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You start to realize that there's certain physical type, usually it's more slender, shorter build, works much better. So I ended off hiring guys and firing guys and retraining. And then finally, I started to click in and find one guy that's good, another guy that's good. And it just kept going. It took years, and took a lot of different guys coming through the door. But eventually I ended off with the guys I have, which is not a lot of guys, but they're great at what they do. And I'd rather do less work and keep a consistent level because if I was a money animal and all I worried about was money, I can make more money than I make. I would hire more guys and give them more jobs. I refuse to do that. I'd rather just be happy with what I do and really, be who I am.
What is your lifestyle? Because it's actually something I want to ask you too, lifestyle versus money. When you wake up on a given week, what does your work day look like these days? I'm sure back then it was 6-7 days a week. You stand in your own floor. What does it look like today?
Right now, I get up. I used to get up 5 o'clock for probably maybe 32 years, every day at 5 o'clock, a lot of times 6 days a week. And I would meet the guys in the morning. usually around 7 o'clock. In fact, this is interesting. A lot of people found this to be interesting. I think you're going to like this, Jonathan. What I did when the company was at its largest is when the biggest my company ever got was 11 guys. So I had 11 guys and I had, I think it was, 4 trucks. So every morning we would meet at a coffee shop. And I had a table reserved for 11 guys Monday through Saturday.
Wow.
And the guys would file in and we would sit down and I would buy breakfast. Now, I'm not going to say I was buying ham and eggs for everybody. I was buying, toast and coffee, bagel and coffee. And the reason I did this was because I wanted to be in touch with my men. I wanted to get an idea where they were going. And I also wanted to have the time to spend with them to get into the intricacies of their work for the day. And this allowed me to go from guy to guy, from leader to leader and say, okay, this job here, this is what's important. This job here, this is what is important. Be careful of this, be conscious of that.
Right.
And I got to the point where I could see a guy come in the morning and walk through the front door. And before he made it to his chair at the table, I knew something was wrong because I knew his body language. I knew how he was every morning and I would address it. And a lot of times put out the fire before it's caught. So that was something that I did for a long time. Then as time went on and actually up to the present, what I do now is I get up a little bit later. I usually meet my guys in the morning. I go over all the details with them for the job. And then once that's done, I go out and I do estimates.
Okay, gotcha.
And I'm usually home by, 3:30, 4 o'clock. And, it's much better now. Also, I don't have the same energy level that I had, obviously in my 30s, 40s and 50s, even though, but one of the things that I very aware of is being healthy, because I've seen a lot of guys my age and, their body starts to fall apart. And all of a sudden, the time in their life when they should be enjoying themselves or reaping the benefits of their work, it's spent going to the doctors. And I've never been a drinker. I've never, been a smoker. I exercise every day. And the most of my weight has fluctuated in the last 12 years is 3 pounds.
That's great.
So, I try to maintain that. And I also, and now can put more time into my relationship with my wife. Growing up, unfortunately, I wasn't around my kids as much as I think I would have liked to have been, or maybe I could have been, because the business really took up a lot of time. But, we're spending time and, now, and, my relationships are good. Both of my kids are doing great. So I'm very happy.
That's constantly a thing too, the life work balance, especially when you have, as you know, I've got 4 kids. Uncle Jonathan's got 2 kids and, working full-time as a nurse, now an assistant nurse manager. It's more demanding now. And also doing some real estate investing on the side and trying to grow that business. And it's hard trying to find out how do you grow, but simultaneously maintain these relationships. Because honestly, who cares? You gain the whole world, but you lose your soul. It's like, that's what does it really matter if you make all the money, but you don't have the people there next to you? And that's something that I deal with. I struggle with, trying to figure out, okay, well, how can I do it? And I try and do certain things, like you said, getting up at 4:30 sometimes in the morning, getting a couple of hours done, some prayers, some Bible reading, some meditation, and then doing an hour and a half of real estate related work or reading, education, networking, email, that sort of thing. Trying to find those times to do it. It's tough though. Uncle Jonathan, what have you've been through this, you've been doing this longer than I have. What are some things that you do or ways that you've maintained those relationships while simultaneously building your business?
Well, I've had to scale back on anything that wasn't an absolute priority. So for me, it's family, business, and a very close-knit group of friends. And then I get the gym, and that's about it. Now, I don't anticipate that being the future for ad nauseum, But right now, man, those are the balls that I'm just not going to drop, you know, and it's family first. So like, you know, and it was funny to hear Jimmy talking about he's like finally not on the hustle the way he used to be. Like I'm still grinding. Like every Saturday is still a work day for me. You know, we've been at the business. The business has a ton of momentum, but I still work every Saturday and Sundays for family. And the rest of the relationships that are those life-giving, you know, iron sharpening iron, most of those relationships are involved in another facet of my life, whether it's business or church, or there's other intersecting points for us to stay connected in relationship. Other than that, I've committed fully to building a business and don't have a lot of time for anything else. So
no, that's good. Jimmy mentioned we're talking recently, and you were talking about, I think before the show, we're talking about how you kind of approach your life and your business is like a straight line. You know, it's like, and people, they get off track, you know, they do this and that, they're doing, you know, 6 different things and they add on 2 other things. Jimmy is just like, I'm doing this, kind of like you were saying, Uncle Jonathan, I got family and I got work. Like, and you know, like, and God, like that's it. Those are my buckets and that's what I'm sticking to. I've learned a lot from that.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to, you know, stick and not diversify too much. You know, it's easy to, you know, as we have discussed.
Yes, I was just thinking, I'm like, we've had so many conversations.
It's easy to be good at a lot of things, but not great at anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's where your personality has to come in. You know, I would rather take all my energy and try to be the best I can at whatever it is I'm approaching, whatever, you know, it may be. I don't really find much satisfaction in mediocrity, you know, so that's kind of, you know, my mindset. I'd rather just try to be really, really good at something, and also realize you can't be great at everything. You know, it's just not going to happen. Right. You know, and I know we've discussed many times, you know, because I
do like drums, cycling, photography, this and that.
Well, you listen, you know, it's a dual-edged sword for you, blessing and curses. I mean, you know, you can do a lot of things and you usually do them well, but you know, too much is not going to work.
That's the thing that I think. I'm 31, I'll be 32 this year. There was something about kind of, I don't know, entering into my 30s where I was looking at my life. I'm like, where, you know, like, shouldn't I be further along? Yeah, you're 29. Maybe there's something to that. You know, I'm kind of like thinking, man, shouldn't I be further along here? You know, the things that I've really wanted to do for my whole life. You know, I've always wanted to be a real estate investor. I've always wanted to have my own company, my own business. You know, shouldn't I be doing these things? Because I feel that there are things that God's put in me to do and to glorify him in that. And I think somewhere, I don't know, maybe there's a thing, maybe your brain starts to like switch on at 30. I don't really know. Something
I just had this same conversation with my son. Mm-hmm. He's 26 and he feels like, oh, you know, should I be more ahead of where I am? You know, like, and you know, it's funny because every stage of life brings a different perspective. And I think the stage I'm in now, if there was anything I could say, is that I didn't realize at 30 years old how many years you have ahead of you, that you don't have to put yourself in a state of constant anxiety. If I was to change anything, I would change the fact that I spent a lot of my hours in a state of stress. And I did that because I just was so concerned with everything being right, everything, my marriage, my kids, always trying. And, you know, you come to learn that things work out, that they just work out, and that you don't need to be that guy. You know, I don't want to be that guy. You know, when you're in a hospital, it's the last couple of days, you're looking up the fluorescent lights and you're running your life through your head and you start thinking, I blew it. Like, all I did was I stressed out. I lived in a constant state of anxiety. God doesn't want that. He tells us he came here to give us joy and life abundantly, and we're supposed to abide by that. So that's the one thing I tell my son. I said, listen, you know, don't get caught into this to where you lose your happiness, where you lose your joy, where you're constantly stressed out. It's for nothing. In fact, there was a study that was done, and I always think about this when I find myself overly worrying about something. They took 20,000 people and they said to them, write down all the fears that you have. Write them down, the things that you have. They took those people back 10 years later and they said, check off the fears that have actually happened, your worries, things that materialize.
Right.
Good. Yeah.
The percentage was ridiculously low.
It's amazing.
Okay. And you know, when you think about that, you think about the things you're stressing about. What if that? What if that?
Right.
Most of that stuff doesn't happen. And so
this is gold.
Yeah. So
for a 30-year-old guy who like lives in a constant state of, am I doing what I should do?
Right. So, you know, one of the things I was talking to my son about was like, look, you need to get the balance right. Get it right from the beginning. Go on vacation, go away. You know, yeah, you're going to have stress because unfortunately the equation is stress and money, they usually go together.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right.
But then I learned another lesson about stress. I had lunch with a guy I hadn't seen in 30 years. And it turned out he became a postman. And when we went out for lunch, I asked him to tell me what he's been doing. And I was shocked to hear the stress level that he felt that he was under. And I looked at him when he was done. I said, listen, I can't believe the way you're describing the stress. I said, if we were playing a game, I think you were the CEO of a major company with the stress you're under,
right.
You know? And then I realized
it's self-imposed.
It was self-imposed. Yeah, he interpreted things that I couldn't even think of being stressful, but in his mind, and he had these incredibly stressful things going on in his life. And I also learned that you can't judge somebody because that's their reality. That's their world.
That's a tough one for me. So I have a hard time with that, where I look at, if you're going to, you know, kind of tease that out. If I'm you and looking at the postman, I'm looking at the postman and maybe there are some issues, but I'm looking, I'm like, life's not that bad. You know, you've got your health, your kids are doing okay, you know, like whatever, like someone has it worse. And something that my wife is trying to help me work through is being empathetic to people who may have that. But that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Well, can I tell you the first thing I do every morning? The minute I close the bedroom door, I stop and I thank God for everything. And I walk around in a constant state of thankfulness because I know what it is to live in one room. I know what it is to drive a 15, 20-year-old car that's breaking down. I know what it is to go bankrupt. You know, I know what it is to go from playing in front of a lot of people and getting a lot of adulation to being on my knees and sanding a floor. So I'm very, very thankful. And I think once any person starts to focus on the blessings in their life, the things in their life that are good, and not think about the things that aren't, their life is going to start being better automatically because what you put out, you get back. You know, it's like you're a barometer. If you're out there and you're putting out a negative feeling towards people, they're going to pick up on it.
People will mirror your behavior.
They feel it. They know. They sense it. But when you're giving them positive output and they feel that, they're drawn to you. They want you around. They feel good when they're around you. So I think that's a really important thing to start your day, just being thankful for what you do have.
Gratitude's a powerful agent.
So
I wanted to
I've heard it said that it's impossible to be grateful and fearful simultaneously, that it's the ultimate vanquish of fear. And it makes a lot of sense because it's about the disposition of where you're coming from. Speaking of energy and that sort of thing, like fear, and this really gets me fired up because so many people keep themselves bound and live small because of fear. Fear really isn't even real. Like danger is real, right? But fear is a figment of what you think might happen.
Look, and let's face it, there's a lot of fearful people walking around. And it's, you know, I mean, look what's going on in our society. You look at this, we just, you know, gone through 2 years of pandemic. Right. Okay, now we're dealing with the Ukraine. People are thinking, what if World War III happens? You know, people are walking around with a lot of anxiety. You know, and, you know, I refuse to do that. I got to tell you something. I refused, and I'm not saying this in a boastful way. I didn't lose 1 minute of sleep over the virus, over COVID. I didn't lose 1 minute. I mean, you know, I mean, I got annoyed having to put a mask on, you know, but I never lost a minute. Man, I did anything I wanted to do. I didn't worry about it. You know, so, you know, but yet I know people that stayed in their home, wouldn't leave their home, you know, wouldn't even go to the supermarket to buy food. And when the food was delivered, they had a UV wand and they were scanning it, you know?
Right.
You know, and, so, you know,
I love, so I think it's a little bit more maybe easier for you at your age to kind of look at life from this perspective where you're at and say, listen, everything works out. My father was telling me the same thing maybe a month ago. Me and my brother and all of our families, we're all together. It's like whatever, 15 people. Yeah. We're all hanging out, and me and my brother are talking about life and different things. And they're talking about, you know, buying a home, and we're talking about where we live and, you know, should we move, this and that, and all these things that we worry about, stress about, think about. And my dad just kind of like, you know, he's listening to everything. You know, my father's nature is kind of like he'll sit back and just kind of listen and observe. But, you know, his wheels are turning, you know, he's thinking about it. And so he sat back, and then he started to speak, and everyone shut up and like, all right, Dad's trying to talk. Dad's trying to say something. And he was like, listen, guys, he's like, one thing your mother's father, my grandfather who's passed, he said, when we were about your age, we were talking about the same stuff with Uncle Bob, Aunt Michelle, and everything. And my late grandfather said, everything's going to work out. It's going to be okay. And there was something about that calming sort of voice that there's something about just having that perspective, like you're sharing right now. It brought comfort. And now he can, from where he's at, he can give us that perspective. Yeah, you know, and look at that. And that's the words of a man who's since passed. Those words are still alive and they're still bearing fruit. Think about that. Right. Like the power of words said in a moment where somebody needs to hear that. It can calm fears, you know, it can, and it surpasses and transcends even your life. You know, you say a word to somebody in a moment and it's like, you know, his words are still speaking to me right now. And then you're echoing the same thing right now. I don't have to be afraid. It's great.
Parents are powerful. You know, when a parent does his job, you know, correctly, he's giving a lot of support, confidence, peace to his kids. Because, you know, when my kids have issues that come up, they'll call me, and, you know, I'll speak, you know, to them in a way that is giving them some comfort, and knowing that I'm there for them gives them comfort. Yeah. And I think that's the way God created. He wants it that way. You know, I mean, you look at a lot of the issues that go on with young people, and you find a lot of young guys that are in jail that have no fathers and never knew who their fathers were, you know, and you think about that for a second. I think they did some kind of survey on, you know, young people in jail, and some outrageous amount of them came from broken homes and, you know, didn't know who their father was, or their father was absentee. You know, you need that support. And, you know, the stage you're in now, I mean, you got a lot of responsibility, and, you know, and you are very, you know, you're a very responsible person. So, yeah, you know, you're going to have a certain amount of anxiety at times. And it's good that, you know, you have your dad to go to, and that was sown into him. So now he sows that into you, you know, and one day you'll be sowing it into your kids, you know, and I think that's what we're called to do. You know, that's God's plan for us, you know? So, yeah, it's a lot that goes into life.
I love it, man. And you're doing it even right now, you know, everything that you learn, all this experience, it gets distilled down into this little episode, this little podcast. Yeah. And now it's not just us, it's everyone who's watching, everyone who's listening. So.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. Like I said, I can't believe, you know, you guys, I'm so thankful you picked me, you know, because, you know, it's funny. I was thinking to myself, when's the last time I was, you know, interviewed? And this is a very unusual thing.
Right. Yeah.
When I was in Vogue, which was the rock band on RCA Records, I got approached to speak at a high school auditorium about what it's like to be an upcoming rock star.
That's great.
So I stood in front. I mean, this was so bizarre. I stood in front of a packed auditorium at a high school in Queens, wearing spandex, and answering questions about what it's like. And I got to tell you, I think after I got done, I think most of those kids decided they didn't want to be rock and rollers.
amazing.
If it worked in any way, it was to deter them.
That's hilarious. Well,
You know,
this is not that same interview.
Right,
this is a different thing.
The whole image got shot, you know, when I told them what really was going on.
Well, listen, reinventing yourself at 29 years old, you get to, you were saying a little bit offline. Now you're in a different phase. You know, now if we're going to take that pain to payoff thing, now you're in a different phase right now. You know, tell me a little bit about what that's like now at, you know, in your 60s.
Well, you know what? I call it the dessert stage because because you know, it's like a lot of the work is coming to a place now where, you know, it's organized, it's consistent, it's good. Once again, can't say it enough how thankful I am for the guys that I have. That's really, you know, I could never do it without them. So, you know, it's working, you know, and also too, my marriage is the best it's been now. Mm-hmm. You know, I have more time to spend with my wife. We've been together for 44 years and she's been with me since, you know, we were kids and I was playing the drums full time, you know.
I think she was in that video, right?
Yeah, she's in that video. She's in that video. Exactly. Right. You know, so, you know, we've spent our life together and she's been with me through thick and thin. And I've been with her through thick and thin. And, you know, that's another thing about, you know, about marriage. You know, a lot of guys, they kind of either consciously or unconsciously forfeit their marriages for business. I was never prepared to do that. You know, I could never understand that. Yeah. But, you know, I'm sure if you look at guys who are the real greats in business, that I'm sure a lot of the time they spent, they were alone.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to, we're talking about relationships too. And, you know, it's like you said, you know, lifestyle versus making a lot of money. You could have sacrificed some relationships to make more money, you know, but you couldn't sleep at night. You couldn't live with yourself if you'd done that. I'm the same sort of way. If I'm going to put my family on the back burner and just focus on business, it's not going to work at all.
Well, you know, there's an ad on the radio or TV, something I heard, and it says there's two kinds of businesses, two kinds of business owners. Those where they work for the business, or the other is the business works for them. You know,
right.
And listen, there's a lot of truth in that. You know, I never, you know, I didn't want to be the guy that just worked and really didn't and missed the boat. You know, I have things I love and I still practice the drums every day. I still, you know, I still train on a bike, you know, I'm still doing the things I love to do, you know, and I want to keep doing them. And like I said, it's great now. I do more with my wife than we've ever done before. And I get to, you know, see my kids whenever I want. So it's, you know, it's really good to not get sucked in so deep that all you have, because what I'm seeing happening with other guys my age that are thinking about retiring, which is interesting because I had this conversation with several guys in the construction business. And some of them simply just say, I don't have any hobbies. Like, I don't have anything else I do.
Wow.
So if I stop working, I don't know what I would do. Wow. And it's a lot more the guys than I thought. Wow. Yeah, a lot more than I thought. You know, I figured I'd be hearing a lot of guys saying, oh, you know, I play golf, or, you know, I do this or I do that. But they're coming to a place now where they have to face the fact that they don't really have anything else but work.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't have that problem.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, you know, I got a million things. I'm
trying to keep it all just focused, you know, and like the notion of not knowing what to do with your time. My wife is like, if we ever retire, if I ever retire, there will be no shortage of things for me to do.
Exactly. I think one of the things where guys get caught also too, when they start getting their retirement age, is not only do they not have anything to do, but they're not physically able anymore to do what they want to do. I had a friend of mine retired to North Carolina, and he bought on a golf course because he was telling me while they were building a house, I'm going to be out there, you know, golfing. And by the time he made it to North Carolina, his arthritis, you know, unfortunately, you know, took over his body. And he says he's lucky if he can go out maybe once a week, maybe. You know, so you have to also remember, you know, we don't live forever.
Yeah.
You know, and our bodies, you know, will eventually give out in some form. And, you know, sometimes you can blow the timing on things. You know, you hold out too long and then all those things you planning on doing, you know, may not happen.
That's it. Plans are only There's only one aspect of things. And I like what you said too. You're like health. You know, you can sacrifice all your health in order to gain all this stuff. But at the end of the day, what's it really worth?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's the expression?
We make
man makes plans and God laughs.
Right, exactly. You know? That's what I was trying to say. Like, what's the thing? It's like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, we make plans, but hey, listen, you know, you think when you're shaving, you know, is this the last time I'm going to be shaving? Nobody ever thinks this is the last time I'm shaving. They go in the car, you know? So, you know, you have to kind of not, you know, scare or paranoid.
From gratitude, from that place of gratitude.
But you just need to remember, you know, that it's balance. It's balance. And I think the art of life, if I was going to say, if there's anything I learned, it's to balance everything. And that's not to say that early on in life that, you know, while you have the energy level and the motivation to do a lot, not to do it, you should do it because that's the right time to do it. But, you know, always to keep in mind, you know, there is always a sense of priorities, you know.
Perspective. That's great perspective. Uncle Jonathan, you got anything to add?
No, man, I think that was a beautiful way to kind of start bringing it to a close, man. You're right. Life is short, and I've got accused of being in a midlife crisis by not Michael, but a different nephew. But there is a reality, man. This dance has an end, you know, and so in all of our ambitious doings, which I'm sure a lot of the people that are listening are probably go-getters by nature, the reality is this dance does have an end, and we need to stop and smell some roses and remember why in the first place we set out to do these things in business, because nobody's pulling a U-Haul with a hearse, you know. And so
that's a good one. That's a good one.
That's it.
That's good.
Be catching up with you, Jimmy. You're a man, like nuggets of wisdom fall off of your lips like crumbs, man. It's so good.
Well, real quick before we end, I want to get into this. We're going to try out this little segment here on the show. We're going to call it the Let's Get Personal segment. This is the part of the show where we ask our guests these same 4 questions just to get to know them a little bit better and just get a little bit more insight. And it's not as official. It's a little bit more casual. Now, Jimmy, specifically, this question really applies to you because you're kind of a foodie. I know that about you. All right. So what's your favorite food?
Well, I love Italian food. And I think part of the reason I was going to have to stay on Long Island is because Italian food's so good. It's a deterrent for me to move.
Okay, gotcha. What's your favorite dish? Or what's one of your, you can't really pick one favorite, right? Like,
I don't really.
If you go to La Parma, it's like,
well, I guess veal color Parmesan is one of my favorites, you know, but at certain restaurants, see, you know, one of the things about restaurants is, and this is funny because when I go with my wife, she'll say to me, every time we come to this restaurant, you get the same thing. And I say to her,
my wife says the same thing to me.
You know what my answer is? I say, well, that's why we come to this restaurant, is to get that dish. So, you know, because we have so many Italian restaurants in Long Island, I have like one restaurant where I get, you know, that dish. I have another restaurant where I'll get lasagna. Right. I have another one, you know, so basically I take advantage of so many and getting the things that I think they offer that's the best. Yeah.
All right, good. So Italian food. All right. And if you weren't doing this business, what would you be doing?
Well, that's a good question.
Take your time.
I think, yeah, I think I'd be a film critic.
I could see you doing that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I love film. You know, I can watch movies. I mean, I never even realized how much I love movies until, I don't know if you ever heard of it. There's a thing called the Academy Awards Showcase. Okay. And this goes on a week or two before the Academy Awards every year. They have movie theaters that play all the movies that are up for Academy Awards. And it's usually somewhere in the, 10 type thing. So you go in and you watch 5 movies in a row, and then you come back the next day and you watch another 5 movies in a row. So, wow. No problem doing that.
Wow.
You know, I can sit down and watch a movie 2 times in a row and focus on different aspects of that movie and different characters and different, way the characters developed and different things, the character and interactions and subplots. And so, I think that would be something that I would have liked to have done if I didn't do it. Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that. Yeah. And I was funny. I just texted my brother Christian today. We're just talking. I was like, look at all the parallels in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Like, that's just one movie. You can watch the same movie as a kid. Right. And then you watch it as an adult with a new perspective. Sure. And you see all these parallels of like, good versus evil and free will. And, like you see all these things and as a believer, as a Christian, I see like, wow, like he set this whole thing up. Can't you see? And he's testing him, and this like impoverished kid, he inherits this whole kingdom. It's like you see all this stuff. I love it. You kind of see different perspectives there at different points in life. It's pretty cool. Where are you headed in the next 3 years? And you can talk a little bit if it's business, if it's personal. Where are you headed in the next 3 years in your life?
I tell you, I'm going to keep doing the business. I'm having a great time doing it, you know, so that's a good thing. I think we're going to take maybe a little bit more vacation time than I've taken, you know. As far as next 3 years, I want to really, actually, I've been getting back into the drums a lot. So I've been practicing the drums every day, and I feel forward motion with that. So I'm really having a great time, you know.
I love that.
You know, getting back into that,
great.
and also cycling. You know, my wife also cycles. Right. So now we're like a team. We go out, we cycle together, and we're going to be taking cycling vacations. We took a cycling vacation right before COVID. We went to France, and we saw the Tour de France. And then we got on a boat and we went up and we cycled through the south of France. So, you know, I'm looking forward.
That's a bucket list trip.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to doing some cycling vacations too.
That's awesome. And last question here, what do you know now as it pertains to your business? We'll narrow it down. As it pertains to your business, what do you know now that you wished you had known when you first started? You kind of alluded to things working out, you know.
I would have to say that's kind of it. It would be more that things will work out and that I don't need to overly stress, you know, and that's easier said than done. But, you know, I think that would be the biggest difference if I went back in time now. I don't think I would have had as much anxiety and walked around with as much anxiety as I did, you know. I think I would have just been a little bit more calm about things. Hopefully, yeah.
It's great. Yeah. That's beautiful. I love it, man. Nuggets, gold, pain and payoff. Yeah. Don't overstress. Start with values, quality, add value to people, be healthy, walk with humility, take it easy. Fear isn't real, Uncle Jonathan said. These are just some of the little gold nuggets that I'm getting from this. And I'm going to look back on this and distill it down and write up some notes and everything. But that's great.
Bike in France. I heard that one too.
Bike in France?
Yeah, bike in France.
Bike in France, exactly.
Take some time to cycle around France.
How old were you when you went to France the first time?
Well, I went 2 times and they were very close. I was, I guess 64 the first time and like 66.
All right. So that's that's a payoff sort of trip. You got to go through some pain for some payoff.
Yeah. I mean, we went to Europe early on. And when I was in my 40s, we went to Europe, you know, but you know, I don't have to tell you guys, you know, when you have your own business, you're married to an extent that the takeoff is very tough. So, you know, I'm looking forward to maybe catching up a little bit in that area now, you know.
I love it. Beautiful, Jimmy. That was awesome.
Hey, listen, thank you. I can't tell you, I appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
Jonathan, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time, man. It's good to catch up and appreciate everything you shared with us.
Good. I can't wait. Next time you're up in New York, you got to come by and say hello.
Sure, sooner rather than later, actually. I'll hit you up here soon.
All right, you got it.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Until next time, this is the Evergreen Real Estate Podcast. Take care.